All right, we are live. Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Let me just go live on Instagram also. And we are live on Instagram and X and YouTube. And this will be posted also later as a podcast on Apple and Spotify. Welcome, everyone. So today we're going to be discussing Trump's wins and losses. He has been in office for a couple weeks now. By the way, I'm Joshua Fontanilla. If you don't already, please subscribe, share, like, and share all that good stuff. I am on X, YouTube, Instagram, all that good stuff, and wherever you get your podcasts. So let's get right into it. There is so much news that has been going on lately that I feel like you almost need to do news recaps every day, or else like whatever was the news a couple days ago is now old because Trump is moving at such an incredibly quick rate. He's just every new day he's pumping out new things. So I'm going to try and do that. I'm going to try and do our lives more often, and so we can just keep up with all this stuff. But so let's get this on the screen here. Okay, what I'm going to do first is I will show you guys basically some of the articles that I have saved on my X account. I recommend just following my X account because I repost a lot of good stuff if you want to keep up on the news. But here is some of my bookmarks here. So the title of this podcast is Trump's Wins and Losses. And if you're listening, I apologize. I'll try to describe it if you don't have the audio or the video. I mean, so Trump's wins and losses. Now, I am stirred up about the losses, the L's, and so I will talk about that. But I wanted to start with some wins because I don't want you guys to think that I'm just dumping on Trump. Because hey, I voted for the guy 3 times, and I think overall he's doing a fantastic job. So let's start with some of the wins that he's been doing. On the screen, you'll see here Mike Benz, which if we've gotten this far by now and you are not yet following and listening to Mike Benz, what are you doing? Smack yourself. Go listen to Mike Benz. He has been on Tucker, I believe, twice now. The Joe Rogan show once. He's all over the place. The guy has been working on this USAID State Department connection to the swamp for years. He's a former State Department official who, basically worked on the inside and saw how most of what you think of when it comes to the establishment, the swamp, the New World Order, whatever you want to call it, the globalists and the left, the commies, whatever you want to think of the powers that be, most of the bad stuff that you see coming from them and that you attribute to that nebulous power, a lot of it comes from the State Department and comes through a few organizations that you may not have been aware of just a few weeks ago. But Mike Benz has been discussing this stuff for years. So we all know the CIA, and we know that the CIA is a nefarious organization, and they do a lot of warmongering, regime change, and it's what are they doing here in America? Well, there's Operation Mockingbird. They're controlling our media. That's been known since the 70s, right? Since the Church Committee. What happened, though, just to give you a brief background on this and what Mike Benz has been saying. So if you because Mike he's very, very into, he'll do 3-hour, whatever. He'll do long streams where he gets into the weeds on this stuff. But if you want the short version, what happened was USAID was created by JFK by executive order, obviously in the 60s before he was taken out by who, right? Okay. He was in the process of having trouble with the CIA. There's a famous memo where he talked about destroying the CIA and scattering it to the winds. And then shortly thereafter, he ceases to exist, right? Okay. What what happened there? So what the CIA, after this, their name was infamous because even though nothing happened, really, they really didn't get punished. The American people, I mean, it was all through pop culture that, hey, we think the CIA had something to do with the death of our president, of JFK. So what's going on here? So because their name was so infamous, they had to take a step back, and there was the church committees in the early 70s that looked at them and exposed some of the things they were doing, and didn't really fix anything, but at least exposed it. It was public and it was well known. So there was too much heat on them. So what happened from there is Reagan came in and basically said, all right, how do we circumvent the public outrage against the CIA? How do we get done what we want them to do anyway, but in another way, so that the public doesn't see what's going on? So what they did is they basically outsourced a lot of the CIA operations to USAID and through the State Department. And so USAID is, even though it sounds like it's an aid organization, that's actually not the name. It's the U.S. Agency for International Development. AID is an acronym. It's not anything they do, but it sounds like, very cleverly, it sounds like it's charity, but it's not. It's not. It's international development. Developing what? Developing CIA assets. And so they go and they spend money all over the place, building up institutions in governments in countries that they want to overthrow. That's what the CIA does. So they go to a country and they say, hey, we don't like such and such leader. So we're going to come here and we're going to say, all right, who's on our side? Who doesn't like this leader also? All right, we're going to send a bunch of money to those guys. Do we have any news media that doesn't like the current leader? Oh, okay, here's this little outlet, or maybe they don't have one and they'll create one. But let's say, oh, here's this little outlet of people who don't like the leader we want to overthrow. We're going to give them a ton of money. We're going to build up that asset. So it's a rebel news outlet, right? And they'll build it up and they'll pump propaganda through to the citizens of that country through that CIA funded, but now USAID funded organization, right? So that's the international development that they're doing. They're not, and it's, of course, it's always covered in, we're going to whatever, I don't know, feed poor people, something like that. It's always covered in that kind of stuff, but that's not what they do. And that's what we've been learning about. So Mike Benz has been covering this over the last years now, but really very notably since he got on Rogan and Tucker just a couple months ago, and just came on Tucker again recently. And so now here's this latest news story. USAID gets cut off, basically. The agency is basically getting shut down, which we'll talk about that in a second, because that's one of Trump's L's. He did that, but it's being blocked by the courts. Okay, we'll come back to that. Anyway, USAID is getting shut down. Their money is getting taken away. I mean, the signs on the cover on the front of their building are being taken down. USA is getting shut down. Their website gone. 2 days later, Brazil is ending its ban on Rumble. You think that's a coincidence? So Mike Benz he's been covering this for a long time now. Basically what you think is happening, where, oh, it's the Democrats and it's, the swamp somewhere, they're doing something. It's the deep state. Yes, you're right. But what are they using? They're using USAID, and it's the CIA using the State Department and USAID and things like the National Endowment for Democracy. There's a couple of them. And of course, the Pentagon, things like that. But they're using the State Department and USAID primarily to go to other countries like Brazil and demand that they censor US citizens and US companies. So this stuff, it's not just, here's this global leftist totalitarian movement that's just kind of happening on its own. No, this is being funded by the CIA through USAID to actually attack US democracy here in America, freedom of speech and all that. That's being attacked using our own tax dollars through USAID. And so once it gets cut off, once the funding gets cut off, all of a sudden Brazil is now letting Rumble back on. It's incredible stuff. So Trump doing this is a massive win, massive W. And honestly, to be completely honest with you, we talked earlier about what happened to JFK when he threatened the CIA. Well, USAID is basically just a subsidiary, an outgrowth, a tool of the CIA. So the fact that Trump is going after that, it makes me worried for him. The CIA is not just going to roll over. They're not just going to take it. So what's going to happen? And we're starting to see right now their pushback with federal judges. We'll talk about that in a second. Here's another win. So because I wanted to make sure we started with the wins before I get to the losses, I'm going to talk about some losses. Paula White, what are we doing? What are we doing, Trump? But let's talk about the wins first. Gaza, we're going to control Gaza. We're going to send. Where are those people going? Oh, Middle Eastern countries don't want to take them. So who's now being told that they have to take them? European countries? Are they going to come to America? All right, those are the L's, right? Well, let's talk about the wins first. All right, so this is Trump has sanctioned and is cutting off aid, or I think he's thinking about sanctioning. He's threatening it, but he's definitely cut off aid to South Africa. And so 10,000 farmers, white farmers, are looking to flee South Africa and come over to the United States. Yeah, you know what I think would be brilliant? Send those South African farmers to Ilhan Omar's district. send them over to those areas that have been. Let's do the reverse. What is it, Dearborn? Let's do the reverse instead of sending a bunch of Somalians into middle America small towns to just overfill them, or a bunch of Haitians into small towns in middle America to just kind of overwhelm those little cities. Why don't we send those white South African farmers to those same areas and balance it back out? Those guys are tough. Those white South African farmers, they've dealt with having their lives threatened for decades now. So why don't we send them over to those kind of areas and balance it back out? I wouldn't be surprised if some of the others who are there just decide they're going to self-deport, or at least balance it out a bit. But so 10,000 white South African farmers want to flee South Africa after Trump's executive order. He's basically going to give them refugee status, because these are true refugees. I mean, the Congress in South Africa is coming out and threatening their lives, saying that their property can be taken, which, by the way, all the human rights people and the Democrats, completely silent. Where are the human rights people? Where's the United Nations? What's the point of the United Nations existing if they're not speaking against this? Like, what's the point? I mean, where's the Pope? The Pope has a lot to say about how Americans need to, or should be, feeling guilty and be morally blackmailed because they're not having open borders anymore. Have they spoken on this? I don't know. Maybe they have. I haven't seen it, but there's a lot of bleeding heart liberals who suddenly don't have bleeding hearts when it comes to white South Africans getting their property taken and their lives threatened. So 10,000 farmers want to flee South Africa, come to the U.S. What's going to happen? I mean, you can write the headline for this before it happens, right? What happens when the farmers leave? The people who are there, who are going to be left without all the farmers are there's going to be a lot of food shortage. Probably going to be some people who starve. You can't just lose 10,000 farmers and then nothing happens to the society. That's going to be a problem. But you know what's going to happen, right? They're going to blame the white farmers for leaving. So you threaten their lives. You say you're going to take their property and you're threatening to go after these people, and then they leave, and then you're going to blame them because, oh, well, why didn't you grow our crops? Well, you were going to you could already predict the headlines that are coming, right? I mean, this is what the left does. All right, so I wanted to cover a couple of W's before I get to some of these L's. There's a couple other news stories here. I really want to talk about this Paula White stuff. Here's a couple other things. The FBI is so corrupt. This is Secretary Kristi Noem, and she's discussing that the FBI apparently is leaking documents or leaking the ICE raid locations before they happen. The FBI is giving heads up to illegal immigrants, hey, the ICE raids are coming in this area or that area, so they run away. That is a very corrupt, or I don't know how you fix that. I don't know how you fix the FBI. I'd be in favor of just abolishing it, start over, fire everyone, but that's me. All right, so here's some of the L's. Federal court blocks Trump administration from detaining Venezuelan immigrants, sending detained Venezuelan immigrants to Guantanamo Bay. So there has been a couple of judicial activist judges coming in and blocking what the Trump administration is trying to do. In one case here, sending illegals to Guantanamo Bay, that's being blocked, at least a few of them. Here it is. Federal court blocked the Trump administration sending 3 Venezuelan illegals held in New Mexico to Guantanamo Bay. And they're saying, blah, 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 whatever. Yeah, I got to be honest with you. If you are not an American citizen, I don't think the Constitution applies to you. That's maybe controversial, but that's my opinion. I do not see it's we the people. It's for us. The whole world doesn't get access to the U.S. Constitution. You don't just magically come in here and get rights to it. No, that's not how it works. I don't. You shouldn't be able, if you're an illegal alien and you are in this country, you should not have the ability to sue in U.S. courts. Like, what are we doing? Like, there should be some other process or something. Like, if maybe for basic rights, there should be some other process. But the fact that you can go get a lawyer and sue the U.S. government, but you're here illegally, no, you don't get to sue anything on the grounds that what do you shouldn't even be here. But this is what happened. So, so what is going to be the response? Now, so far, I have not seen the response that I'd like to see. I see people talking about it, but I don't see it happening. And I will tell you, this will quickly turn into a massive L for Trump if he doesn't do what needs to be done. And what do I mean by that? It's very simple. It's very simple. Defy the courts. What do I mean? Ignore them. Ignore them. Just do it anyway. Whatever you were planning on doing. Because he's being blocked on this. Oh, there's some really nice guys in the comments here on YouTube. Hi, you're crazy. Leftists calling everyone the 1930s N-word. Okay. Thanks for joining us. All right, but there's already been one of these in the. I'm going to skip that. All right, I'm not even going to watch the comments because I don't really care. You can comment though. There's already been one of these blocks in the courts on this. Now, Trump has also been blocked from another federal court on the issue of firing employees. So the USA employees, like 2,000 of them, that has been blocked. The idea of just putting them on leave, blocked. So the court is deciding who the president can fire in his own department that he runs. Okay. That doesn't make any sense. That's not constitutional, but that's what's happening. The courts are blocking the Trump administration from deporting people. The courts are blocking the administration from. There's another decision where they're blocking Doge, and the Treasury Secretary from access to the data that they need to run their department. The Treasury Secretary not having the access to the information in his own system. And so basically, we're in a situation where the people who are under the Treasury Secretary, who work in his department, just average, office workers in the government, but in the Department of the Treasury, have more access to data than the Secretary of the Treasury himself or the president's appointed officials. This is crazy, but this is what the courts will do until they're stopped. They have to be defied. You have to ignore them. So this is what happened in the first Trump administration. You're in a situation where the president comes into power with a massive mandate, won the popular vote, landslide electorally, comes in. He's running 3 branches of government. The Republicans, are in charge of 3 branches they're in charge of everything. The courts, the Supreme Court at least, the House, the Senate, and the presidency. So we've got all 3 branches of government on the side of the Republicans. And yet, we haven't heard a word from Congress doing anything. They're not planning on doing pretty much anything that Trump is wanting to get done. None of it. Name me a red state that is going and doing the things that Trump is doing. That's starting their own Doge programs and cutting all this spending, and they're not doing it either. Barely. There's a couple small examples, but a lot of them are fighting that, and we'll get to that in a second too. So what does Trump have to do? So Trump instead has to do all this stuff through executive order, which are temporary, but it's all he can do, right? So he goes in, he does these executive orders. We get 2 weeks of just boom, 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 executive order, one after another, win, win, win. We're getting tired of winning, so many of them. But then the courts come in and the courts block him. So if something doesn't happen where we can overcome courts blocking them, or if Congress doesn't do something, then none of these things that Trump is trying to get done will actually matter. None of it's actually going to get done. Nothing's going to happen. These things will get stopped. Trump will be frustrated, and it'll be, oh, well, he tried. That's not good enough. What needs to happen is the courts need to be defied. Our system was designed, and let me explain this briefly if you did not know this. Our system, our constitutional system, was designed so that the judges can be ignored, even the Supreme Court. You don't believe me? Think about this for a second, and you really need to go read the Federalist Papers if you've never heard of this. What is the enforcement mechanism that a judge has on their court decisions? They don't have one. They do not have their own police force. They don't write laws. They don't execute the laws. They don't enforce them. All they can do is make a decision and say, this is right or this is wrong. But they rely on the states and the federal government, the presidency, the executive branch, to actually go and enforce those decisions. If the states say, I think your decision's nonsense, I'm going to ignore it and I'm not going to enforce it, they can be ignored. And the system was designed that way because otherwise they are the most powerful branch. They were on purpose designed to be the least powerful branch. Why? Why are they the least powerful? Because they're not elected. Most of these federal judges are just appointed. And then on top of that, they're there for life. It is the least democratic part of our republic. And so it has to be the weakest part on purpose. That's how our system was designed. They can be ignored. Now, you don't want to ignore them all the time. There should be legitimacy to the court, but it's their own fault if they've gotten so far that they're just ruling hey, president can't sneeze. He can't walk into the White House today because I feel like it. I mean, I'm making things up, but you get the idea. If they get so ridiculous, they have to be ignored. And if Trump does not ignore them, that's his own then he's allowing his presidency to be ruined. Now, I have hope that this time he's a second-term president. He's got nothing to lose. It seems like he's going full blown. I have hope that he is going to do the right thing and defy these judges. He'll probably go through the Supreme Court first because he likes to go through the process. He's not crazy like these leftists make him out to be. He'll go through the process. He'll go through the Supreme Court, but Supreme Court's not perfect. John Roberts is a rhino. I mean, they might on some of these cases, but they may not even hear the case. So he has to defy the courts. And by the way, the states need to do the same thing. Defy the courts. You want to know a really ugly secret? Roe versus Wade was a Supreme Court decision. It was not a law. They just decided it out of nowhere. And it happened how many years ago? 70 years ago, 60, 70 years ago. The states could have been ignoring it for decades. Red states could have said no and then just ban abortion. They could have done it. They could have saved millions of lives if they simply had the bravery to do so, but they chose not to. You think I'm just making this up? Go look up Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was told, the details of the court case doesn't matter, but a court decided a case on him. Supreme Court decided a case, or a judge decided a case, and his response was, okay, he's made his decision on that case. Now let him enforce it. Go look it up. Let him enforce it. And his comment was saying he doesn't have a way to enforce it. I can ignore him. That is the idea. The states could ignore SCOTUS. They could ignore these federal courts, and Trump could ignore these courts. I'm not making this up. We're only doing this because we're being polite. That's all. Literally, it's being polite and not wanting to rock the system that has led to the death of tens of millions of aborted children. You don't want to hear it? It's the truth. I'm telling you right now. It needs to stop. All right. Next one. This is, okay, on your screen here, you see this NFL ad where a black girl takes on an entire team of male athletes. Of course, it's white male athletes. One is, they're obviously mocking this white dude with the big shirt that says Brad, and he's got he's got the mullet. And what are we doing? I did not know that this level of cringe was possible. It's 2025. Girls are not oppressed. And so the NFL wants now to have flag women's football in all 50. Why flag? Let's make girls flag football a varsity sport in all 50 states. So the NFL is pushing that. Why? How much USAID money is coming for this, right? How much CIA money is coming for this? They're trying to destroy the country. You think, oh, this is no big deal. No. They're trying to destroy the country by destroying gender roles, by destroying that's how you destroy the family. That's how you destroy the country. You can think I'm being extreme or making it up if you want, but that's reality. You know what? All you need to know about this kind of stuff right here is look at the fact that USAID through the CIA, or the CIA uses USAID. When they want to overthrow a country, they push this stuff. That's what they do. If the CIA wants to overthrow some third world country, they push gender crap, they push the alphabet mafia stuff. That's what they push in order to overthrow a society. And so when you see it happening in America, what's the goal? They're trying to destroy this country. That's what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. Here's another 2-minute ad pushing flag football, black girl boss beating all these. It's just all these white jocks. It's just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. I mean, come on. And does anyone believe that this is delusional? Teen girls are not beating a bunch of male athlete jocks. It's just, come on, guys. All right. So here is FEMA. I'm not going to talk about that because I don't want to go too long on this live. I want to get to the Paula White stuff. So let's talk about some L's. We've talked about some wins. Let's talk about some L's. So I'm just looking through my my bookmarks here. All right, here is Paula White. She has been named, if you haven't heard this, she has been named by Trump. Apparently she's his spiritual advisor, or one of them. She has been appointed as the lead for the new White House Faith Office. So Trump created by executive order this new office called the White House Faith Office, and then appointed Paula White head of it. She's a heretic. I mean, I don't know what to tell you guys. Paula White preaches prosperity gospel. She preaches the word of faith prosperity gospel. It's not hard to look this stuff up. It's not hard to see here. Let me put something else on the screen here. Let's share this tab instead. Okay. And get that out of the way. All right. Daily Mail. Here's Christians furious as Trump appoints heretic preacher to lead the White House. So we're going to talk briefly. I don't want to just dump on her, but we're going to talk briefly about who she is, what she teaches. People are saying this is an abomination. She preaches the prosperity gospel. She's lived a life of scandal with multiple husbands, twisting the gospel for profit. She's married to rock star, former Journey lead singer Jonathan Cain, blah, blah, blah. Okay. White House is obviously spinning this as a good thing, but the backlash is coming. And this is, I basically agree with this. Like, not every choice he makes will be a home run. We understand that, but this is a train wreck. I basically agree with that. This is from Scott Ross. Oh no, this is blogger Chris Honoles. Probably pronouncing that wrong. I basically agree with that. Like I said, most of this stuff, 90% of what he's doing is fantastic. This is a train wreck. Paula White is, like, some other people need to get into his ear. Like, what are you doing with this stuff? She, and here's the thing. Here's the thing on Trump, and here's why this is a problem. Trump's not a theologian. I don't doubt his faith. I don't know his heart, but clearly the guy's not a theologian. He's not a deep thinker on spiritual things. The guy's an action guy. You can just tell the way he talks. He hasn't studied the Bible very well. I'm sure he's read it. I'm sure he's read. I don't know. But he doesn't seem like he knows Christian doctrine very well. And so he's not a good judge of character on this stuff. So who does he appoint? He appoints the person that's close to him. this is why, let me get to my point on this. And there's some people who are going to disagree with me, but I'm going to tell you what I think. This is why church and state should remain separate. Don't misunderstand me. Don't misunderstand me. We should have Christian values. We should have Christian based morality in our government. Absolutely. We should not have to hide our faith in public school, in government, all that kind of stuff. I don't misunderstand me. I'm not going so far as the leftists do, where Christians need to go hide under a rock, and there's nothing that is even vaguely related to Christianity that should be in government. I'm not going as far as they do. That's not what I'm saying. But overt things like this, we're creating an office of, what is this called again? The Office of Faith. What is this called? White House Faith Office. What are we doing? What happens when you create a White House Faith Office is the White House goes and appoints who's in charge of the faith office. And who's in the White House? Well, a guy who knows how to get things done, a businessman who is extremely good at what he does and extremely good at, what he's cutting waste in the government. He's doing a fantastic job at that. He can take out, who did he take out? The little, what was it, ISIS that he took out in his first term, just like wiped him out. He's fantastic at stuff like that. He's not a theologian. And so he's appointing just a straight up heretic. And so my point is, do you want politicians deciding issues of faith? Because I'm telling you right now, it starts with a faith office. But just look into history and see, whenever church and state get closer and closer united, it ends up being that government has more and more say and more pull in what churches say, what they are allowed to say, and that basically is what they are allowed to believe. Because what you say is what you're allowed to believe. If you can shut somebody up from teaching a doctrine, then nobody's going to hear it or think it, and eventually it'll all be forgotten and no one will believe it. That's why tyrants control words. That's why they do censorship. That's the first thing they go after. And so it leads to steps. All you got to do is look at the history of church and state uniting. In the Dark Ages, in the Middle Ages, it was not a good thing. We should have, here's the way I'll put it before people get too mad at me. All right, there's 10 commandments, right? Here's my dividing line. Here's where you make the dividing line. 10 commandments. Did you know that the 10 were written on 2 tables of stone? So you had 4 on one side and 6 on the other side. The first 4 commandments have to do with your relationship between you and God. Don't take the Lord's name in vain, those kind of things. Don't bow down to idols, those kind of things. The last 6 commandments have to do with your relationship between man and man. So your neighbor, adultery, stealing, killing, things like that. So, bearing false witness against your neighbor, those are all the last 6. That's the second table of the 10 commandments. That second table should be enforced by law. All that stuff should be enforced by law. We're talking sexual immorality, enforce it by law. Right? Personally, I'm all for banning gay marriage. I'm all for banning abortion. I'm all for those things. Let's put that stuff into law. So don't come at me and say I don't want morals in government. I do. Last 6. The first 4, that is between you and God. The way that you worship, you have to leave that part alone. And so because government can't decide these things properly, Trump picking Paula White to lead the White House Faith Office is a perfect example of why government and church should stay. That's why Thomas Jefferson is the one who said a wall of separation between church and state. Keep them separate. We don't want the government. They mess up everything. We don't want the government deciding what you can believe. Now, of course, that's not what's happening today, but I'm telling you, that's where it goes. If you don't believe me, read Revelation 13. All right, I'll stop with that on that one. Let's go back and talk about some more L's. So this is that was my main one. That was my main L I wanted to talk about today. There's a lot of wins. I don't want to just attack Trump. There was a lot of wins. This stuff here, the January 6th stuff, is massive. Look at this. AG Bondi, Bondi. So this is the new Attorney General, Bondi. She's creating a weaponization working group. The day she took office, look at what she's going to do. It says the pursuit of improper investigative tactics and unethical prosecutions relating to events at or near the United States Capitol on January 6th. So basically, she's going to look into the corrupt. It says I don't have my screen share audio. That's fine. She's going to look into the corrupt January 6th prosecutions. Fantastic. This is a massive W for Trump. Massive W. The fact that he's kicking these people out and he's trying to do all these deportations, the fact that he's going after U.S. aid, these are massive, massive wins. Fundamental, massive wins. He is being blocked on a lot of them. And so we're going to watch and see what's going to happen. You know, it seems like we have seen the response from the left, which is, they're having massive protests in major cities all over the country. I'm really surprised by some of these in like the South, some of these cities where it's like, man, we're like in South Carolina and, there's these massive, where are all these illegals from? Where are they coming from? I expected in Arizona and, but like, man, so the response is these massive protests, and then it's the judges blocking these things, blocking these executive orders. And then of course it's the deep state, it's the swamp. Oh, last one. Yeah, this is one we may have to continue this another time. The other tactic of the swamp right now is what is happening right now at the state level. At the state level in red states across this country. If you have not been following this, I'm in Florida. I'm from California. I've lived in Florida for almost 5 years now. If you have not been following what's going on in the Florida legislature, it is insane. We may have to do a whole nother live on this. I'll just tease it for now. They are trying to push amnesty through they have like a super majority. The Republicans control everything in Florida, and yet the state legislature is trying to push through an amnesty bill, and they're calling it the Trump Act. So basically what they're doing is like when the Democrats named it the Inflation Reduction Act, but it was actually more spending, or when Bush created the Patriot Act, but it was like, spying on Americans, right? That's what they're doing. They named it the Trump Act, but it totally undercuts any efforts Trump has to do his deportations. It's mass amnesty. And Ron DeSantis, credit to Ron DeSantis, he is coming out and hitting hard on this. But that's what's going on in Florida. If you look at it in Texas also has where they're pushing DEI. Trump's banning it at the federal level, and yet Republicans, rhinos at the state level in Texas, are pushing to make it into law, to make it so DEI stays. You understand me? It's crazy what's happening. Who needs enemies when you have friends like this, right? And there's a few good ones. Ron DeSantis is doing a fantastic job. There's a few here and there. That is one level I did not expect to see this type of pushback at the state level. You expect to see it in Congress, but it's almost like the rhinos know that we're watching how Congress reacts to Trump, so they're doing this stuff at the state level. And I will put out a warning, and we'll talk about this. Let's talk about this more tomorrow, because I don't want to keep. I want to end this live pretty soon here, but I will say this: be careful who you are listening to as far as influencers, and check what they're doing, because there are influencers who are being paid to push these rhino bills. Like the amnesty bill in Florida. There's people on our side who you would not guess. I was shocked at some of these people who are pushing this stuff. Daniel Horowitz is doing a great job showing how this is being exposed. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Florida's Voice, that's one of these organizations that is they're just paid rhino propaganda. Florida's Voice is a joke. I mean, they'll put both sides on, but they're pushing Joe Groders. He just a complete rhino swamp creature. I mean, Ron's exposing him, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad what's going on here in Florida. Dana Loesch is also exposing him. Wilton Simpson is one of these guys. These people are just paid off rhinos. That's what they are. All right. So we discussed plenty of wins and losses. I think that's enough for today. Forgive me if I ignored your comment. Oh, wait. I ignored the comments, and all it is this dude. I should have blocked this guy a while ago. Look at that. Ban user and delete their comments. Dude made like 50 comments, and they're all gone with one click. Yeah, you you did great, bud. All right. Like, share, subscribe. I will post the audio of this on podcast, and I'm going to try and do these more often, just to keep up with all the news. Follow on X, Instagram, and we're on X, Instagram. Where else are we at? TikTok, YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you guys. See you next time. I'm out.